tangata whenua were land people, not landowners. They didn't have an equivalent concept to individual property ownership. That is not to say that there weren't territorial disputes between hapu and iwi. There were. But for Māori, humanity descends from Papatuanuku, Earth Mother, Primal Mother, from whom we gained our physical aspect, our ira tangata, and the ira atua, the non-physical or spiritual aspect, came from Tāne Mahuta, the atua of the forest. While many Māori trace their origins from their ancestral waka, canoes, that migrated from Hawaii, our spiritual homeland, others speak of being born of this land, like the hapu one, the hapu of the earth or soil, and Ngā Pōtiki, whose eponymous ancestor, Pōtiki Tike Tike, was born of the union of Te Maunga, the mountain, and Hene Pūkohurangi, the mistmaid. The whenua has its own mana and tapu, authority and sanctity. It exists as an entity, due respect and protection. The whenua birthed us. The whenua sustains us. The relationship with the whenua is one of whakapapa, genealogy. So the people have a duty as kaitiaki, guardians or stewards, to the whenua. Occupation of the land doesn't necessarily mean people have authority over the land, as is the case with whenua tuku or tuku whenua, when land is gifted to another people for their settlement, but the mana or authority over the land remains with the original people. The authority to make decisions regarding the whenua is a matter of mana whenua. The key responsibility of a rangatira, a leader, chief or chieftainess, was to ensure the well-being and the future of their hapu. This entailed protecting traditions, custom, tikanga and kawa, land, the environment and natural resources. It involved decisions on political and military matters and social practices. A rangatira must protect the mana, the power, authority and prestige of the hapu, and respond to offences committed against them, and perhaps seek utu, responses that restore dynamic balance and harmony, which could include war. A rangatira secured marriages and alliances by demonstrating Manaakitanga, that hospitality, or giving a koha, a gift, and strengthening whanaungatanga, relationships. The work of whanaungatanga between hapu was unceasing. This is why Māori were able to rapidly mobilise so many rangatira to sign he whakaputanga and Te Tiriti. They didn't have phones, but they had excellent human communication networks. Rangatira understood the importance of whanaungatanga, enduring relationships that were mutually beneficial, and the necessity of reciprocity. A rangatira was mandated to make decisions on behalf of the hapu. They tended to be the firstborn of noble lineage connected to the local whenua with an aptitude for leadership. A rangatira has certain pūmanawa, innate talents, described in an old whakatauki, saying, E waru ngā pūmanawa, the 8 talents of man. Those pūmanawa are 1. Industry, in cultivating or obtaining food. 2. The power to manage and mediate, to allay problems or troubles. 3. Bravery and courage in war. 4. Generalship, a good leader of people in war. 5. Knowledge of the arts and carving, etc. 6. Generosity and kindness. 7. The knowledge of house, fort and canoe building. And 8. Knowledge of tribal boundaries. The authority of rangatira was bestowed by their people, and that authority could also be withdrawn if they failed in their duties and did not consider the best interests of the hapu. However, Rangatiratanga, leadership, was not the exclusive domain of the elite. The mischievous rule-breaking rangatira remains a famous heroic rangatira archetype embodied by many Māori leaders like Maui, Kahungunu, Tamatekapua and more. Active, inquisitive children with such a nature were not punished as defiant and disobedient, but rather recognised as intelligent with leadership potential. They are affectionately described as haututu. Their development was guided with more flexible approaches. A rangatira has mana, authority, prestige, power, influence, status, and spiritual power. There are multiple English translations of Rangatiratanga: chieftainship, the right to exercise authority, ownership, kingdom, realm, sovereignty, self-determination, self-management and independence. Tino Rangatiratanga is routinely translated to absolute sovereignty, the highest chieftainship or self-determination. The Waitangi Tribunal has extensively discussed the scope of Tino Rangatiratanga, while the courts have largely avoided defining Tino Rangatiratanga. The precise translation of sovereignty is one of the biggest points of contention with Te Tiriti or Waitangi. One must understand mana to understand authority and what might approximate the Western concept of sovereignty in traditional Māori society. Mana has no single definition. It has many different characteristics. It is closely related to the concepts of Tapu and Mauri, and there are many different types of mana. Tapu is that which is restricted, set apart, sacred, sanctified or consecrated, thereby creating the conditions necessary for empowerment with mana. A tohunga, a priestly expert, was set apart from others to maintain their tapu and mana. An urupa, a cemetery, is set apart from the living as a place for the dead. A rangatira is set apart from others by their intentions, role, responsibilities and work. The complementary opposite of tapu is noa, the unrestricted, neutral or mundane. People tend to think of Mauri as a vital essence or life force. That sounds a lot like the Force on Star Wars. A more helpful explanation of Mauri is that it is a principle of cohesion. Mauri is what gives a forest ecology its vitality. It's what maintains social cohesion. It is that thing that sustains the life and well-being of an individual because of its cohesive nature, and it resists fragmentation of the self, one's identity or psyche. Mauri is protected by mana and is therefore strongly associated with tapu. Mauri isn't an animating force. It is not an example of Māori animism or vitalism. That's a taurangi rereke, an unlike term, a false equivalence. Individuals have their own mana, tapu and Mauri. Acts of Manaakitanga or hospitality are intended to enhance the mana of another, and people who are particularly skillful at Manaakitanga are seen to have greater mana themselves. The right of a person, a rangatira, by consensus to represent the interests of the people regarding the land is called mana whenua. A hapu holds mana whenua over their area of land. A rangatira, on behalf of the hapu, with mana whenua, can speak about how the land is used, accessed, and so on. Mana whenua relates to local economic power. Mana tangata is like political power, where a person is appointed as a representative leader of a group of people, either whānau, hapu, iwi, or even waka. They provide the consensus opinion of the people. Mana atua is to be empowered or endowed with a particular gift through an atua, god or deity. For instance, some people were endowed with the aptitude for superior military tactics. Mana Motuhake is very important to the iwi of Ngāi Tūhoe. It is similar to Tino Rangatiratanga. Both terms have been translated to self-determination, sovereignty and self-government. For Ngāi Tūhoe, Mana Motuhake has been likened to a charter of rights, like the self-evident truths in the American Declaration of Independence. Mana Motuhake has connotations of unique power and authority, freedom, liberty, nationhood, self-determination and independence. There were no kings, queens or monarchy in the pre-colonial Māori society. The most suitable Māori concepts to explain such absolute sovereignty are Mana Motuhake, Tino Rangatiratanga and Mana. This is vital to note when considering He Whakaputanga, the Declaration of Independence of the United Tribes of New Zealand of 1835 and Te Tiriti of Waitangi, the Te Reo Māori text, and the Treaty of Waitangi English text of 1840. The famous Enlightenment thinker John Locke wrote of the right of revolution in his 1689 essay, Two Treaties of Government, the right of people to instigate a revolution against the government when it acted contrary to the interests of its citizens. For Māori, people have always had the right to rebel, to protest, and to express their dissatisfaction with the performance of their rangatira. This could be expressed in a haka, or a manawawera, which means a seared heart. This refers to an angry, defiant chant that can relate to political or personal matters.